Hello and welcome to this week's edition of SouthCoast End Zone. I'm Tim Weisberg.
I'm Laurie Loss.
And we are here to talk with you about South Coast High School football. And we had a very interesting week last week, that's for sure.
Yep.
And I'm not saying that I called it, but I called it in my head. I might not have said it out loud, but
What?
I knew Apponequet was going to shut out DR.
Hey, I picked Apponequet. I picked the Lakers.
But you didn't pick a shutout, did you?
No, I didn't pick a shutout.
I don't think anybody would have.
That was pretty impressive. Shutting
But
out DR.
it was quite a week. We had a couple of teams get their first wins and some teams get some big wins. So we'll get right all into it. And Laurie, I know you're going to lead us off with first and goal.
Yep, first and goal. Here we start. First down. Old Colony's Ryan Farias recorded 124 of his team's 230 yards on the ground, including taking his first handoff for a 36-yard touchdown in a lopsided win over Cape Cod Tech. Second down. Raekwon Phillips scored 2 touchdowns and had 78 rushing yards to power Old Rochester pass case. Third down, Apponequet's Matt Michael carried the ball 13 times for 68 yards and 2 scores in that shutout win over Dayton Rehoboth. Fourth down, GMB Voketech's Sean Aldridge and Nick Richard combined for more than 325 yards and 4 touchdowns to give the Bears their first win of the season. And getting into the end zone as the player of the week, Dartmouth sophomore Chris Martin broke free for 117 yards on 9 carries and scored the first 3 touchdowns of his young career in that shutout win over Bishop Stang this week, or last week, I guess. So
that's something about last week, man. Just a lot of yardage racked up by the area offenses.
Yeah, it was pretty impressive. I was at that Dartmouth Stang game, and after the game, I said, is this kid a secret weapon? He's only a sophomore, and Rick White said, well, I guess he's kind of a secret weapon because, we hadn't really heard much about him. And I know Tim Smith has been kind of limited, in his return. He's playing defense, but he hasn't really seen much offense yet. So it's good to be able to have a sophomore come in when, your senior, you're supposed to be your featured back, isn't back on the field on offense. So that worked out well for Dartmouth.
And I saw that you were tweeting pictures of the cheerleaders from Dartmouth High and giving updates. And, of course, if anybody out there wants to follow along with us on Twitter during the games, you can follow us at SC_varsity. You can also tweet us any information that you have, photos, videos, whatever you may take, and we'll be happy to retweet it as long as we can, as long as it's appropriate.
Yep.
Sometimes it's not.
Yeah, sometimes it's not, and we have to say, we can't retweet that. So.
But give a big shout out to all of the other area newspapers that help us out too.
Yep.
We retweet a lot of their stuff for games we can't be at.
Yep. So and they do the same with us too.
So we create quite a little network on Twitter. So follow us there at SC_varsity and also on Facebook, SouthCoastVarsity.com on Facebook. So those are our plugs for the week. All right, let's get right into the games that are coming up this week. We'll start off with Friday night's games. We have Dartmouth at Attleboro at 7 p.m. And after that big performance Friday night, can Dartmouth keep it rolling? I
think that's the question all the Indians fans have, and it's going to be a bigger challenge this week against Attleboro, which Attleboro is ranked in the top 20 in a lot of the polls, in the statewide. I think ESPN Boston and Boston Herald, Boston Globe. So this is going to be a tough team for Dartmouth, considering Attleboro last week beat Bishop Feehan 35-3.
Wow.
And that's
Bishop Feehan being held to 3 points.
Yeah, that's impressive. And Attleboro, they play in the Hockomock League. They kept, like I said, they kept the Shamrocks out of the end zone last week, but they were impressive on offense. The quarterback Tim Walsh, he completed 11 passes for 220 yards and 4 touchdowns. All 4 of those touchdowns went to Brendan Massey. This kid caught 5 passes for 130 yards. Also, Walsh had a rushing touchdown. So the key for Dartmouth is going to be somehow getting pressure onto this kid Walsh. I mean, he's the one that makes the offense go, and then I don't know how many defenders they're going to try and, maybe they'll try and double team Massey. But that, at least from their win over Bishop Feehan, that's going to be the key for Dartmouth. But like I said, Dartmouth came out strong. They had sophomore Chris Martin had that huge game. And the game was pretty much over by midway through the second quarter, and then the second half, Rick played a lot of his reserve players. But Chris Martin had 3 touchdowns. Connor Tavares scored twice. Matt Boulapard, I hope I'm saying it right. I think I might.
Bo Parlin?
Bo Parlin.
You were close.
I was close. He had a scoring strike to Jacob Rose, to kind of give a little bit of balance to that mostly run offense that Dartmouth does have. So kind of keeping the defense, a little bit honest there. And they had nearly 300 yards rushing, and they limited to Bishop staying to just 117 yards of total offense. And I think when I came in from the game that night, I said, they had 117 yards staying, but 28 of those came on the last play of the game.
Right, yeah.
So they really held them. I think it was to like 89 or 87 for the entire game up until that point. So it's going to be a big challenge. Hopefully, I'm fingers crossed. I'm going to be going to that game in Attleboro, so you'll be able to follow along with live tweets from that game. So
you're exclusively on the Dartmouth beat this year? Is that how
I wouldn't say that, but I look.
That's why you wore the jersey in the opening there. That's why.
Well, it's probably one of the best games of the weekend coming up.
Sure.
Most likely will be our game of the week. So all of our teams except for Voc Tech and New Bedford are away. So we have 6 or 7 games this week, and we only have 2 home games between Friday and Saturday.
If you're willing to drive, we need you to. So.
Yep. So.
So that'll be 7 o'clock, Dartmouth at Attleboro. The next game is also a 7 o'clock Friday night game. It's Fairhaven at Greater New Bedford Voc Tech. Fairhaven had a week off last week to regroup a little bit after the season opening loss.
Yep.
And Voc Tech had a big win.
Yeah, Voc Tech is coming in with a lot of momentum after beating Seekonk last week, and I had picked Seekonk to win that game because Seekonk opened the season with a big win. I think it was over Case. I guess Voc Tech had maybe saw that and gave them a little bit of motivation.
Laurie's face on the bulletin board in the locker room.
Yeah, throw the
darts
at it. Yeah.
But they could throw worse things at you in a locker room. So
I guess so. But Sean Aldridge had a breakthrough game. He had 167 rushing yards. He scored 3 touchdowns. Nick Richard also had a huge game, 159 yards rushing, and he had a touchdown. And really, from what Buddy said after the game, because Buddy Thomas was at the game, Matt Hill had a huge game defensively. Right. He had 2 quarterback sacks, and he had an interception. So that really set the tone, for Voc Tech and Voc Tech's offense to get things going. I know some of those turnovers, or the turnover did set up one of the touchdowns. But Fairhaven, they needed a much needed bye after losing to Apponequet week 1. They were shut out, didn't get to score, and their best drive in that game came on their second possession of the first quarter when quarterback Cam Charette. He led a 13-play assault that began at their own 23, and they got all the way down to the Apponequet 18. But on 4th down, he had an incomplete pass, and that was the closest they got to scoring in that game. Kevin Albino did have a solid performance in week 1. He had 31, pretty tough yards on 9 carries. But they're going to have to get something going. I know after that game, I said Charette looks like he's got the potential. He's got the potential to lead this team to some victories, and just whether or not he can get on page with some of these young guys that they have. So, and this is a great SouthCoast Conference game. It's going to be at Voc Tech. It's one of our I think it's the only home game of Friday night for our local team. So, if you don't feel like traveling to Attleboro or to Bourne or anywhere else, that might be a good place to go.
Well, Bourne's only 5 minutes from my house. So
well,
it's not a big deal for me.
Yeah, but if you're here in New Bedford.
So that's Fairhaven at Greater New Bedford Voc Tech, 7 p.m. Friday night. We were speaking about Bourne. Old Rochester at Bourne is also a 7 o'clock game Friday night. And the Bulldogs have come out looking pretty good here, and they really don't feel like they're firing on all cylinders yet.
Yeah, I haven't seen them play yet this year, but every story, that we've written about them, it's like, okay, we've had some mistakes, we've given up some big plays, we had some turnover. It's not a perfect effort every time, but like you said, they're 2-0 to start the season. They had 367 yards of total offense this past week against Case, and 279 of those came on the ground. Raekwon Phillips had a huge game. He carried the ball just 4 times, but had 78 yards, and he scored 2 touchdowns, which is a huge deal. I know Nolan Bergeron and Darian Dumont, they had the other rushing touchdowns for the Bulldogs, and Bergeron also completed a 10-yard scoring strike to Alex Ari. I think that's how you say it, Ari. I don't know. Alex Ari. I'm pretty sure. If it's not, let me know. But they're getting the job done on offense. I know defensively they did give up a couple big plays to Case, but they only let them score once. I think it was in the first half of the game, so they shut them out the rest of the way. And Bourne is a team that I know the last few years we've kind of kept saying, Bourne's tough. Usually.
Bourne's.
They have some good running backs. And
They usually do, but unfortunately they're not the powerhouse that they
No.
once were with the split with Upper Cape.
Yeah.
And now Upper Cape's become a really good team, and Bourne's been kind of left behind a little bit.
Yeah, and I know graduation did hit Bourne hard too. And in the first 2 games, both losses for Bourne, they've been outscored 98-21. And they failed to score in last week's loss to Cardinal Spellman, which was 50-0.
Wow.
So there's tough.
So the Bulldogs should be able to put some points on the board. I would think.
Tough time for the Canalmen right now. And Marquise Rhodes, in that first game of the season that they lost, he had a hand in 2 of Bourne's 3 touchdowns in week 1, and it was a loss to DR. He actually threw a touchdown pass and rushed for another one. So if Bourne does get something going, it's going to be because of Rhodes.
And any old Rochester fans that head out to Bourne for that game, you might want to bring some earplugs. I always like to talk about the play-by-play guy.
I know you do. You always do.
With his raspy voice. And he's got a nickname for everybody. But it's all in fun. He's a great guy. So that's Old Rochester at Bourne, Friday night at 7 p.m. And also another South Coast Conference game is Wareham at Seekonk, 7 p.m. On Friday night as well. And Wareham started the season 0-1.
Yep.
Got a bye, and maybe they have a chance now to get something going with that new look offense.
Yeah, and they're kind of in a similar position to Fairhaven, which opened the season with with the loss, and I know you never really think a second week bye is a good thing, but when you start off the season and I think they only had 74 total yards of offense against Bishop Stang, Wareham, and they really didn't get much going. I think Owen Braley had 27 rushing yards on 5 carries, and he was their leader.
Yeah.
So they had some mistakes, and they just didn't look like they had this new offense, but they didn't look like they were all in sync. So I'm hoping after the bye that they have, they can go down to Seekonk and have a strong performance against a Warriors team that you don't really know. I mean, they opened the season with a big win over Case, and then last week, Voc Tech kind of ran through them, and really dominated that game. And the Warriors last week against Voc Tech, they only managed 106 yards on the ground, and then they were held out of the end zone until the 39th or 38th minute of the game. So they only scored with like 2 minutes left in the game. Quarterback Brendan Smith, he did connect with Andrew Killinger for a 12-yard scoring strike. But I guess it was a controversial play. There was something about the ball. The officials had said the ball was live, and Voc Tech didn't realize it, and nobody was over there. And I know Buddy had written a little bit about it in his game story that it kind of came on not a fluke, but a little bit of controversy. But Smith did complete 21 of 36 pass attempts for 298 yards. So he was getting up and down the field, just Voc Tech was keeping him out of the end zone. And like I said earlier, Hill sacked him twice and intercepted one of his passes. So, I mean, if Wareham, even if the offense isn't kind of clicking, if their defense could play better than they did against Stang in week 1, kind of, cause some problems for Smith, I mean, maybe.
I know with the new alignment, there's no such thing as a good loss really, because you can't afford to lose any games. But I would, if you're Wareham and your team that's young and trying to put in a new system, and then maybe week 1 loss can be treated almost like another scrimmage, and you can kind of continue camp through into that second week, and hopefully now they feel like now they're ready to come out and play the season.
Yeah.
Well, that'll be Wareham at Seekonk, 7 p.m. on Friday night. Another Friday game, but this one's at 4 p.m., is Apponequet at Case. And now, maybe I'm not sure exactly how the South Coast Conference A and B division breaks down, but Apponequet and Old Rochester, are they on different sides?
No, they're in the upper, the A bracket.
So they're both in the A bracket, so they're both 2-0.
Yeah, and they won't face each other until Thanksgiving. So technically the conference title won't be determined if
they keep winning.
Yeah, if they keep winning until Thanksgiving, but playoffs obviously will be determined before that. And we'll have some kind of answer Friday of what exactly the South Coast Conference is going to turn into the MIAA as far as how they want to determine their playoff teams, because I know there was an issue with that this past week. But as far as I know, I'm pretty sure that they're planning to, whoever is leading in the conference standings, after week 8, that's who, those are the teams that are going to make the playoffs, as opposed to having, being on the power rankings, because those were the 2 options. So,
okay.
But yeah, Apponequet 2-0. I mean, that win over DR last week. I think that really, I know we said week 1 that was a big statement against Fairhaven, shutting out the Blue Devils at home, but I think this was an even bigger statement.
I'd say so, yeah.
You know, Dayton Rehoboth's the powerhouse. Usually they're in the conference. They have conference title hopes every year, and most of the time they're either, you know, finishing first or finishing second. Oh, I guess go Devils over there, Fairhaven.
Fairhaven fan.
I guess John Comey's a Fairhaven fan. But anyway, I mean, I think that was a huge game for Apponequet, really just to kind of distance themselves from everybody else. And once again, it was the running backs that got it done. You know, Matt Michael, he had a pair of touchdowns. Troy Nanfeld scored a touchdown. Weston Cohen scored a touchdown. Cam Costa, the quarterback, you know, I think had like 60 or 70 yards rushing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, they had, you know, over 300 yards rushing, and by halftime, you know, the game was already decided, and a lot of the starters didn't play in the second half. You know, it's nice to be able to rest some of your starters, you know.
Against DR,
yeah. Against DR.
Nobody would ever think that would happen.
It doesn't happen too often. And, you know, Apponequet, the one thing that Coach Lump was a little bit nervous about going into the season was their depth. They have a lot of kids that are two-way players, and then, you know, if somebody gets injured, what's going to happen? Who's going to fill in? You know, is it a freshman or sophomore? But the defense, you know, with some of these two-way players, I mean, they kept, I think, DR, you know, in check that first half. I don't think they got their first down until it was 4 minutes left in the second quarter. So that's almost a whole first half.
That's a statement.
Yeah, and I think they held DR's offense to just 5 total yards rushing for the game. So right there, I mean, that's to me that's even more impressive than, you know, scoring 29 points. You know, that, I mean, when you're able to do that on defense
right.
to a Dayton Rehoboth team that's, you know, known for being able to move the ball, and, you know, Dave Driscoll's a great coach, and, you know, so that's a big statement. And they're going up against Apponequet, the Case this week, and last week Case only managed that 1 touchdown against Old Rochester, and like we said, it came from Nick DiNardo. He took a handoff from fellow running back, Phoenix Boy, and he bolted 73 yards down the sideline for a touchdown, and that was their lone score. I know Old Rochester, that was the one, you know, they gave up a couple big plays. That was one of the big plays that Case had. But for the rest of the game, the Cardinals didn't really get anything else going. Phoenix DuBois, he had 32 yards on 15 carries. So, you know, I mean, those are a lot of tough. When you only get 32 yards, you know, it's almost like 2 yards a carry. You know, it's pretty tough moving the ball.
Phoenix didn't rise.
Yes, definitely did not.
So if you're Coach Lump, then I guess the main challenge this week is to not let your team get into that letdown of where you are so high from beating Dayton Rehoboth that you kind of start believing your hype a little bit, and you overlook an opponent like Case who can do some damage.
Yeah.
So that'll be a great game. Apponequet at Case, 4 o'clock on Friday afternoon. And our last game of the weekend is Saturday afternoon at 1 p.m. That's Franklin at New Bedford. The Whalers opened up this past Saturday or Friday afternoon.
Yep.
And they did some really good things, but they ended up falling short.
Yeah, well, I think with New Bedford, it just seemed like they didn't come out of the gates. You know, I was getting text messages with the scoring updates, and I couldn't believe them. You know, they fell behind 24-0 in the first quarter. You know, I'm not exactly sure what it was at the halftime, but it was like they had dug themselves in such a deep hole. Mm-hmm. You know, because the defense gave up some big plays that once the offense started coming around with, I think it was Brendan Costa, the freshman at quarterback, it was just too late. You know, he did some really good things. He connected with Kevin Nunes for 2 touchdowns, one for 37 yards, the other for 74 yards. He completed 10 of 16 passes for 199 yards. And this is a freshman.
Right. You have a freshman throwing for 200 yards in his first game out there. That's pretty good.
Yeah, first game with varsity. You know, varsity's first game. I mean, that's impressive. But I think him getting into the game at that point, with them being down so much, you know, it gave him some opportunities. But, you know, I think that slow start really just hurt New Bedford way too much. And the Whalers gave up nearly 450 rushing yards, and they had given up 10 plays of 15 or more yards on those 10 plays. So they gotta watch the, you know, giving up the big play. And Franklin plays in a tough league, you know, the Hockomock League, you know, also with Attleboro. So you know they're gonna come in, they're gonna be strong. And they opened their season with a 40-0 win over Framingham in week 1, and they had a bye last week, so they're rested. In that week 1 win, Andrew Parent had a huge game defensively. He returned an interception 60 yards for a score, and also scored on a 1-yard fumble recovery. So 2 of their scores came on defense by the same kid. And the 3 of Franklin's other 4 touchdowns came on the ground. They had 3 different guys that scored. And their quarterback, Danny McDermott, he connected with Quinton Harrell on a 6-yard scoring strike. So the defense scored. They had 3 touchdowns by their running attack, and then they also scored through the air. So I mean, this is going to be
they get it done.
Yeah, this is going to be another tough challenge for New Bedford this week. So.
Well, hopefully they're up for the challenge, and they like I said, they did a lot of good things. So if they're focusing on that more than the final score, then they got a good shot.
And really, I mean, that game was kind of not out of hand at halftime, but it was. I mean, and if you take away that first half and you look at what the good things they did in the second half, I think that's something that they're going to really focus on and try and build off of. And they did do a lot of positive things in that second half. It's just the defense is going to have to give a stronger effort this week to get the W. So.
All right, so we'll run down all those games real quick for everybody one more time. Friday, we have Apponequet at Case, 4 p.m. Wareham at Seekonk, 7 p.m. Dartmouth at Attleboro, 7 p.m. Fairhaven at Greater New Bedford, Voc Tech, 7 p.m. And Old Rochester at Bourne, guess what time?
7 p.m.
7 p.m. And then Saturday's game is Franklin at New Bedford. Both Bishopstang and Old Colony have bye weeks this week. So.
Yep. And I know some of our fans out there, it's not that time of the year yet, maybe another week or so, but I will give us reports on the hot chocolate.
We did get a hot dog report.
I did have, I didn't eat anything before I went to the game at Dartmouth Stadium, and at halftime I ended up going down and having a hot dog, and it was pretty good. Hot dog and a Gatorade at halftime. Need that fuel for the second half.
All the players are watching Laurie drink a Gatorade saying, what the heck did you do that you need to...
I had to go up and down the stands a couple times.
And then after the Indians won, she dumped what was left on her head and celebrated.
No, I didn't do that, but...
I don't know. I got a feeling you're going to be the beat reporter for the Indians this year.
But I depending on how the weather is, we're shooting this today on Monday and it's chilly today, if it's chilly on Friday, I'll probably have a hot chocolate and start giving my grades starting next week. So I know everyone's curious about the hot chocolate.
It's going to be a whole separate blog. But you can follow along with us on Twitter at SC_varsity and also on Facebook, SouthCoastVarsity.com. on Facebook, as well as the SouthCoastVarsity.com website itself.
Yep.
And we post all of these shows on YouTube under South Coast End Zone. And what else? I mean, you can also email us, sports@s-t.com. You can call us, you can read the paper, send up smoke signals, knock on the window, which would be impressive because we're on the second floor.
Yeah, that would be really impressive.
And I think that about does it for this week. Anything else to add? Or?
No, that's it.
All right, well then until next week, we'll see you under the lights.
And in the end zone.